We got one more guest, one more segment here for this week on Bang the Book Radio. That is the Odds Report with Brent from DSI Sportsbook. As I mentioned at the end of Thursday's show, as I neglected to mention here at the top of this show, recording via Skype with Brent. So doing the first part of the show on Blog Talk Radio here, second part of the show on Skype. I can't talk to and record myself on Skype, so that's why I went with the Blog Talk Radio route here for the Super Contest segment. I'll do everything I can in my power to smooth out the audio and make it sound as similar as possible, especially from a volume level standpoint. But in any event, here is this week's version of the Odds Report with Brent from DSI Sportsbook. All right, I'm joined now by Brent, the head risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook in Costa Rica. Brent, how's it going today, man?
We're drowning in all this, everything's that going on with football. I mean, we'll get into this obviously, but NFL is just wacky so far. I mean, how many times a year do you hear stuff about guys missing games because of mono? I mean, maybe it's not rare, but quarterbacks getting bounced in the first week. I mean, you got running backs getting bounced in the first week. It's just I was going to, the lawsuit stuff coming out against Brown and that whole fiasco after week one is just, it's been a crazy week.
Yeah, most definitely has. And like I was telling you, and you and I kind of talking before we started recording here, it feels like this week of football snuck up on us too. Like, oh, all of a sudden it's football again. And that's even without Thursday night college football.
Yeah, no, it is kind of a weird feeling. Like you were, all the preseason stuff you get ready for and all that kind of such. But it's just like, I mean, especially on the betting markets, preseason is just not very well bet, and it's certainly not after like week 3. It's almost, it's just not bet at all, really, other than just recreational guys who are going to watch the game. So it's been, it's here we are, week 2, and a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Long list of games to get to in both college football and the NFL. So we start on the college football side here with the first game on the board for Saturday. Interestingly enough, game 109-110, Ohio State and Indiana. And the sharp action on this game, you probably weren't too happy to get early in the week.
Yeah, honestly, this whole week, I'm really not happy with much of the sharp action we got, simply because we got quite a bit of sharp stuff coming in on favorites here, which you never like to have, because you generally feel that public guys are going to go with the favorites in most cases. And there's, we got some really, brand name teams we're going against here. And Ohio State, of course, is the first one here where I've got just a massive count. I mean, this early in the week for a college football game to have a wager count 8-1 favoring Ohio State is just massive. The sharp money that I took on this was at -15. I see we're up to 18 right now as last we stopped. Now, there was some injury information that came out as well with respect to the quarterback for Indiana. The quarterback, he's questionable, but this move basically came even before that, and I'm just way one side right now. We take money at -15. You're kind of like hesitant to move too much past like 17.5. But once 15, 17 college football, it's not like you're really holding on to key numbers. This number did open up as low as I think 14. So if you got bet at 14, then you really might want to dig in and hold a position. But there comes a point where when you get a count this big, you just got to move with the flow. And we, like I said, we got hit at -15 and we're up to 18 right now.
All right, so move down to game 113-114 here. NC State takes on West Virginia. Another road favorite getting some love.
Yeah, another road favorite getting love, and also getting love from the public. I'm getting the feeling already, and I know it's early in the season, but there's often times where both public and sharp money will identify teams to go against, and I think West Virginia is one of those teams. I'm just getting the feeling that they're going to be one that sharp guys and, like I said, the public are looking to go against early. This line hasn't moved a ton. We did get bet on NC State. I got bet at -6. I think the lowest number that opened was -5.5, and we have a move up to 6.5 -115, or you've got some like -7 dog 15. So you got a road favorite here on NC State, who's got a wager count here in house of about 3-1 favoring them. So I do have public money on that side as well. Like I said, I got bet -6 on NC State. West Virginia, yeah, I mean they're 1-1, but I think they opened the season was James Madison. They beat, that was their one win, and that was like a 20-13 score. Last week there, last time out they lost to Missouri, I think 38-7, I guess it was. So they got beat up pretty bad, and only one win is a kind of extra added type school with James Madison. So again, last week was the same thing in terms of the love that Missouri got over West Virginia, and I see that again this week.
Well, and again, it's very important for our listeners to keep in mind, you talk about a move on Ohio State from 14 or 15 up to 18. You look at this game hovering around a key number of 7, and you notice the hesitance to go to 7 or anything higher than that. So again, for our listeners out there, keep that in mind, that you'll see some of these runaway moves on double-digit games, but you're not going to see that around key numbers.
Yeah, and like I said, we got bet at 6, and I'm going up to 7. So that's probably not, really a risky position for me. If you got bet at, say, like 4.5 and you're going up to 7, then you want to, kind of dig in or use juice to your favor. So I think, way that count is going, I could see this number going up to 7 flat across the board by Saturday.
All right, I do want to go off script for 1 second. I apologize. I know that sometimes it's a little bit tough when I do this, but game 143, 144. It's not that far up from the next game with some sharp action we're going to talk about. But I just wanted to get a feel for what the public market looks like for this USC and BYU game. Again, game 143, 144, because this is such a fascinating handicap.
Yeah, let me just pull up my count here. Looking at you got USC, on the road here. Pretty much open at 4.5, right? And we're sitting rather steady at 4.5. In house, I'm just sitting. Wager count's actually pretty even. I mean, I've got pretty much a balanced chart here in terms of money and count. So I'm not, every now and then we say that we like to say that we get it right on these things. USC BYU open 4.5, sitting at 4.5 right now. This total has gone up from the opener. Lowest opener was like around 51.5 or 52. It's up to 56.5. So definitely gone up. But yeah, it's an interesting spot. You got USC. I think they're like in the top 25 there in terms of the rankings and on the road at BYU, which obviously is a tough spot.
Yeah, I was just curious to see, if there was any sort of one-sided nature either with the public or the sharps, and it seems like this game is split, and I wouldn't be shocked if it stays split here into kickoff. So that was one I just wanted to touch on real briefly with you. We'll go back to the games that do have sharp action here that we've seen so far. Game 153, 154. I love this game. Iowa and Iowa State, big rivalry game. Seen the side kind of flip favorites a little bit here so far, but you got hit on the total for this game.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like talking about how football's kind of crept up on us, and this is one of those games you just kind of expect. Like, this is one of those like middle of the season, late season games you kind of expect with this big rivalry game. The spread is right now Iowa -1.5. They're on the road at Iowa State. Number did open at Iowa State -1, so that has flip flopped in terms of the favorite there. I've actually got just kind of reading in between the lines here, I've got actually a wager count of almost 2-1 favoring Iowa State. So I've got Iowa State, money and count in house, and you see the line flip flop towards Iowa. So that kind of tells me that somewhere out there, if other public shops have seen what I've seen, I've got money on the home dog Iowa State, yet the line's gone up on Iowa. So I'm guessing that was favorite money that moved that. Myself personally, what we took in house was under money. Under 46 is where that came in, and we're sitting at 43 right now. Count wise, nothing really of note in terms of the total, but just the sharp action on the under 46.
So I moved down a couple spots on the board here. Game 157, 158, Western Kentucky and Louisville. I think Louisville is going to be a popular sharp team here for a little while because what, they gave a game effort in week 1 against Notre Dame. Played very well last week against Eastern Kentucky on very short rest. Now they're getting love here in the market this week against Western Kentucky.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, Louisville, they're not, it was just, it wasn't long ago that they were one of the, consistently one of the more solid teams around football. Had a rough year last year, I think it was. And so here we find them, counts pretty much close. So I don't have a runaway count on this one, which is kind of nice. I've got, decent two reaction to my count. I do have more money on Louisville, and you can tell by the, the move out in the market up to 10 or 10.5 out there. That is where the sharp money came in on Louisville. Now I got bet -8.5, Louisville at home to Western Kentucky. think the lowest number out there that did open was 7.5. The highest number right now is 10.5. So we're seeing 10s and 10.5s out there. I'm sitting at 10 right now just because I do have decent two-way action to my account. It's not a massively bet game right now. I mean, the public isn't heavily involved in this one. So I have a close count, slightly favoring Louisville. But the money I took at 8.5, and if most of the market is at 10, I'm kind of hanging out at 10. If most of the market goes up to 10.5, I'll go with them. But Sharp was at 8.5. Other than that, pretty much two-way action.
Now, ironically enough, I had a listener question about game 161, 162, North Texas and California, sort of asking about, a really bad spot for Cal here coming off of the Washington win. My power ratings personally say I should take North Texas, but I'm worried about how the Mean Green scores in this game. Apparently, somebody out there in the market isn't as concerned as I am.
Somebody out there, yeah. No, you talk about that, the big win by Cal last week, of course, and that was on the road. At Washington. So that was a big, that's a big win for sure. And now you're coming home to a spot like this with North Texas, and then they go on the road to Mississippi. So, I mean, it is kind of a tough spot. I mean, such a high win for them on the road, such a big game at Washington. And now, got us kind of what you might want to call a sandwich spot or a look-ahead spot where they got Mississippi on the road next time out. This line hasn't moved a ton. It was at plus 14.5 where I got North Texas money. So plus 14.5 is the sharp money I got on this game on the road at Cal. The line right now is pretty much 14 across the board. I'm seeing like a 14 dog 15 out there as well. My money is pretty much even because I got a count favoring Cal. So I've got some more bets on Cal, but I've got sharp money on North Texas plus 14.5. And I think I can't really predict the future in terms of where this is going to go. I just got a feeling it's probably going to hang out where it is. I think that anytime I go back to 14.5, I'll get sharp money the other way if I have to do that. So for right now, we're sitting at 14, and that's working for us.
Well, we talked about Washington, and we talked about Washington last week because they took money in that game against Cal that they wind up losing. Well, it hasn't stopped sharp money from hitting the board on the Huskies this week in game 183, 184 against Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's still, one of the top-ranked teams. I think the top 25, they're still up there. And obviously they had, much bigger expectations for the season. Here they are against a, Hawaii team who's probably, let's just say, they're probably just not that good. Even though they are 2-0, I think that's kind of deceptive, and that's maybe why this number's kind of didn't open a little bit higher, but it has kind of ticked up quite a bit from where this initial sharp bet came in at 20.5, sorry. So we're sitting at 20.5 is where that sharp money came in on Washington. I've got a count favoring them as well, about 2-1, so nothing massive in terms of the move, or sorry, the count. It has moved from 20.5 up to 22 where I am right now. I think there's some 21.5s out there, but based on the sharp money, I'm going with the highest number on the board at 22. If that goes up to 22.5, I'll just kind of follow them. I know it's kind of a dead number, and again, it's not like you're really concerned about a game landing 21. I mean, it can happen, of course, but it's not like 21 is a key number. College football especially, you're not worried about numbers like that. So I could see this one, keeping the trend upwards in terms of Washington. They are at 22, like I said, right now. If that went up to 22.5 or 23, would be no surprise at all.
All right, one more game to talk about here on the college side. Game 191, 192, Oklahoma and UCLA. You're getting a double whammy here in this one.
Yeah, and I almost didn't want to write this game down just because I don't even want to talk about it, Adam. Nothing but money on the favorite there, Oklahoma. We've gone from 20 is where I got bet. This number, I think, opened maybe a half point lower than that in the market. We're sitting at 23.5 right now, just trying to get something back the other way. And again, UCLA, you just kind of get the feeling that they could just get blown out in this game. And obviously, we're hoping that doesn't happen. But they are sitting at 0-2, and you got Oklahoma. I understand it's a your home team there with UCLA, so you're kind of like hoping that's worth something. You figured neutral field, what would this price be? And Oklahoma is just such a powerhouse team, and obviously when you're laying 20 points, you're going to get the over money that goes with that. And this number's gone from 67, I think it was 67.5 is where I got bet, up to 73.5 where we are right now. So just a real big move on the total. That's almost like a 6.5, almost a 7-point move on the total. You got your spread moving about about 3 points, up to 23.5 or 23. Just big moves. And you're looking at a UCLA, a team who lost to Cincinnati, lost last week to San Diego State. They got Oklahoma at home this week. Then they go on the road to Washington State. I mean, things could get ugly real fast for UCLA, and I'm kind of concerned that Oklahoma just runs them off the field.
One last question I had for you in college football. As I look at the odds screen here, there's one, maybe two books that have FCS lines listed, FBS versus FCS, and then also some places do list the FCS versus FCS games. But for the most part in the market, they're not out there early. Maybe you get some game day type stuff. Well, why is that? Is it just too risky?
It is. I mean, just to be honest, yeah. I mean, there's so many college football games out there, so many colleges out there. And then you get these FCS games, you get added games, you get extra games, all that kind of stuff. And you're talking about, to have a real good read on the kids who are playing for these teams, a real good read for weather information. Wind's a factor for your totals for sure. Maybe not so much rain, but wind is a big factor. Injuries, all that kind of stuff. Being on top of all this stuff is just really, really difficult. So you definitely can't go out too early with these numbers. We do put them up day of game for lower limits. But, I mean, you see, honestly, we get relatively good numbers. I think our numbers are solid, but it's just inevitable that you've got guys who have a better opinion than you out there. You see line moves on this stuff of 6 points, 6.5 points on a regular basis.
All right, so we transition over to the professionals here, talk some NFL to finish up this week on Bang the Book Radio. We start with game 265, 266, Buffalo and the Giants, and I think this sharp money is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think, you look at last week, Buffalo, I think at the end they kind of squeezed it out against the Jets. And the other hand, you're looking at the Giants. I mean, they just look really, really bad against Dallas. If you look at if you take away kind of like the garbage yards that they picked up when the game was, when Dallas was pretty much in prevent, the Giants did absolutely nothing offensively. But what I have here is a move up in the total. This number was at 42 where I got bet. So Buffalo Giants over 42 is where the sharp money came. We're sitting at 44. Buffalo, we did kind of expect a little bit better from their offense, and maybe that they'll get things going this week against the Giants. I think this may be more of a play and more of a say in terms of the opinion that people have of the Giants here. Like I said, Dallas. They really looked good last week, and we can talk about them later. But I think this is more against the Giants. You also see this game, was a pick. It opened at a pick, and you got Buffalo 1.5. So it looks like one of those games where it's kind of a play against the Giants, and you really, based on what you saw last week, tough to really argue with that.
All right, so we look here, game 267, 268, Arizona and Baltimore. We do have a couple of very, very big numbers out there on the card here this week, this being one of them. Now, you did take totals money here, but what do the counts look like on the side?
Let me pop. Yeah, the thing is that with this game, I mean, you're looking at, Arizona team, and I think, people kind of wanted to get behind them in terms of the offense and stuff like that, but definitely I would say there's some skepticism, in terms of what they're, what people expect in terms of the offense, the quarterback, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a tough spot, I think, for Arizona. You look at the, sometimes I do go back to the look-ahead lines, and this line, again, I mean, Baltimore just crushed Miami, and perhaps Miami is worse than anyone could have imagined, even though everyone thought they were going to be terrible. The look-ahead number on this line was 9.5. I think it opened around, or got bet up to like around 13.5. We're sitting at 13 right now. Count-wise, it's actually not too bad. I've got decent two-way action. I think when you get up to a number like 13, where we are right now, 13.15, it's just a case of the numbers kind of, it's the right number in terms of attracting two-way action. But again, it's almost like a 4-point move, 3.5-point move from what the, quote-unquote local headline was. I do have sharp money on this one. And again, you kind of, you might, you could see where Baltimore perhaps put up a whole lot of points. And then you look at Lamar Jackson, what he did last week against Miami, maybe it had more to do with Miami than it did to do with Baltimore. I got under money on this one. It came at under 47. So under 47, Arizona, Baltimore is where the sharp money came. This number did open lower and got bet up, and I think that was just public driving it up. It touched 47, and I just get a feeling this number is going to start trending down. We are at 46. If this game came around 45 at game time, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Well, and then the next game here, 269, 270. No sharp action in shop on this one, but Man, I could have never imagined. You can get a team that's a huge underdog if they're 0-7, 0-8, something like that, and they just look really, really horrible. It's week 2, and Miami's getting, 18.5 at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think this number is just overinflated. That's just my opinion of it. I think this number is probably going to come back down closer to like around 17.5 or 17. I mean, that's still just a massive number. But this game, got as high as 19. It's kind of ticked down a half point to 18.5 where we are right now. I mean, yes, Miami could be a terrible, terrible team. But the thing is, like, when you're looking at people and talking about reaching in your pocket and putting down money, how much faith can you have investing in Miami right now? And, by all accounts in the offseason, they were talking about how they've basically, they're playing for the future and stuff like that, and trading away, I guess, Tunzel before the season started, all that kind of stuff. So it seems, a lot of the attitude and morale perhaps in Miami has something to do with it. But you got to figure, and again, I have this faith and belief that these guys are still professionals. Anyone who goes out there is going to try and win on Miami side. I believe that, as a player, your management can do what they want in terms of dealing players away, but whoever they put in there, I believe, is going to give their best effort. And this number just seems overly inflated.
All right, so we moved to game 271, 272 here in the NFC East. This one does have sharp action on it. Dallas and Washington. What do you got going on here?
Yeah, I mean, Washington, for the books, what a disappointment they were last week. I mean, they came out of the gates, looked fantastic. And of course, it's just like Philly just decided like, oh, okay, we're going to play a football game now. So let's do this. And ended up covering the spread against Washington. And again, the big deal for us was even if, Washington could have got inside the number to cover teasers, would have been nice for us, and it just didn't work out. And I think Guise is gone for Washington as well. They're going back to Adrian Peterson, and now they're hosting Dallas. This number's gone up to 6. It was 4.5 is where I got a sharp money here. So Dallas on the road. It's kind of strange. You got an interdivision game, but going up. And I got sharp money on Dallas. So usually it's one of those spots where sharps are looking to play the home dog in these division games. Not the case here. Sharp money, Dallas minus 4.5. I'm up to 6 right now. That's pretty much the consensus. There are some 5.5s hanging out there, but Dallas minus 6 is kind of the consensus one. And you really, if you look at, things preseason wise, into what you see now after week 1, if you're going to kind of tick things one way or another with Dallas, I think you have to upgrade Dallas. They've got a lot of offensive weapons for them now. Cobb seemed to fit in really well with that offense. You talk a lot about coaches and stuff like that, and new coaches coming into new teams. But sometimes coordinators make a big difference. Obviously, offensive and defensive coordinators, and they have a new offensive coordinator there with Dallas. And I mean, Prescott, I think, in terms of QB ratings, he went out and had like a perfect game. Now, he's not going to do that every week, but I mean, against Washington, he just might.
All right, so we move to game 275, 276 here. Seattle takes on Pittsburgh, and this is another one with sharp action you probably didn't want to see early in the week.
Well, it's not bad because I do have, I think Pittsburgh, the way they looked against New England on Sunday night, they didn't look very good at all, and kind of just like the whole morale of that team. I don't know, it was weird. I've never seen Pittsburgh kind of look deflated the way they did on Sunday night, but I do have sharp money on them on the home favorite. You got Seattle on the road now, and again, let's not forget Seattle just barely squeaked by Cincinnati. I mean, they ended up being like, I guess it was a 9.5-9-point favorite. Seattle did. They barely got past Cincinnati, and now they're on the road at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh coming off one loss, so Pittsburgh's 0-1, Seattle's 1-0, and I've got public money more on Seattle. I've got a wager count, nothing massive at this point, Adam, but a count of about 2-1, like a solid count, decent action on this one. So it's pretty indicative that I got a public sharp split here. Public money on Seattle, sharp money on Pittsburgh minus 3.5. I'm at 4 right now. I don't think this number is going to go crazy. I think 4 just might hold it and get money both ways, just because I got the public money going the other way.
That's fascinating to think of public money on Seattle here in this spot. Pittsburgh, a team that, Pittsburgh heard all summer long about how great the Browns were going to be. That didn't work out in week 1, but it also didn't work out for Pittsburgh either. So
yeah, I think it's more of a play against Pittsburgh when I see the public money. I don't know so much of it's like, hey, we love Seattle, but it's kind of like one of those things where, okay, you just get a feel sometimes that people want to see Pittsburgh lose, or they want to get, bet against Pittsburgh. You see the same thing with Cleveland, as we talked about. I mean, they were just like, I talked about last week on the show how sitting at, 5.5, was so tempting. I think Sharps were waiting for a 6 on Tennessee. They kind of touched 6 and then it went back. And of course, you look what Tennessee did. And also the Browns. I mean, they seem like one of those teams where a little bit frail. If things start going bad with the egos they have in that dressing room, things could blow up on them. But they're so popular in terms of the flavor of the month, kind of, this whole season. Cleveland's just a heavy public team. And again, you get people, sometimes public, who they love a team and they also hate a team. They just want to bet against a team. They want to find any reason to do it. And I think that's the case here with Pittsburgh.
Well, and certainly Mike Tomlin didn't have a very good look in week 1 either. So maybe that's part of the sentiment there to fade the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and Roethlisberger too. I think, I don't know if the public loves Roethlisberger. I mean, he did have some off-field incidents a while ago, and he kind of even through the Antonio Brown stuff, he came off kind of maybe like an ego thing with Antonio Brown, and that was before the recent stuff that and all the antics with Antonio Brown came out. But you just kind of get the feeling that he's not a guy that the public loves.
No, that's very true. That's certainly true for a lot of different reasons there. All right, so we go out west here. AFC West matchup. A lot of division games here this week, it feels like. Kansas City and Oakland, game 281, 282. What's going on here?
Public one way, Sharps the other way, and you pretty much can figure out what that is. The public still, despite the Mahomes got banged up a bit last week, they lost Tyreek Hill, and it's interesting with Tyreek Hill. I mean, he is such a big part of that offense, and he's kind of a I would say like a full point downgrade. If you look at this game, Oakland did win their opening game as a dog, so that was kind of you're taking some positive out of it. And again, hating to go back to the Antonio Brown situation, but on a team like the Raiders, I mean, you've got to figure that inside the dressing room, they're kind of like, okay, that whole freak show was behind us. That guy didn't want to be here. Let's prove to everyone we're better than he thought he was, and maybe others thought he was. So it does come down to a bit of a pride situation. And you got here, a Kansas City team who opened -8. I got sharp money right away on Oakland +8, and we're down to 7 right now. So breeze right through the 7.5 down to 7 where we are right now. I think that number is going to hold. Look at headlines. I kind of look at them every now and then. The line here on this one was -7. It opened at -9. Sharps brought that back down. You've got the Hill injury as well. So between the Sharps and the Hill injury, the 9 coming back to 7 is kind of where the look ahead line was in the first place.
All right, one last game to talk about here for this odds report segment, and this is one hell of a game for sure. 283, 284, New Orleans and the Rams. New Orleans, massive Monday Night Football comeback, and there are some storylines to this one coming out of last year's playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously going to be a good game for us in terms of betting volume and action. The number on the side did open Rams -3, which I thought it was a tick high market wide where it came out. I thought 2.5 might be a better number. It is down to 2 actually where we are right now. I'm actually on the side. I've got a little bit more Rams money, and I got a count of about 3-1 favoring them. So just in terms of public money, I wouldn't be surprised if that one ticks back up. Again, just public money so far. I don't have sharps on the side. Now, again, the fact that I've got Rams money in house and the number's gone down from 3 to 2.5 to 2 where we are right now, I'm guessing out in the market somewhere that sharp money did come in on the Saints. It didn't here, but I did get sharp money on the under of this one. That came at under 53.5. This number opened as high as 54. This is a solid 52 out in the market right now. And yeah, I mean, the Rams, they didn't look great last week, and New Orleans had that, the real struggle with Houston, which was a great game. And you got two, real solid offenses here. So I think, what we're going to see is the old, sharp and public split. Right now, my count is about 4-1 favoring the over. So that's kind of a good indication of where the public is going to go. And I got sharp money already under. So I'm kind of liking this position in that it's going to be a high volume game in terms of betting action. And I expect the public is going to continue to bet the over. Yeah, we got the sharp bet early on the unders, under 53.5. So I'm kind of comfortable with that.
Brent, the head risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook, joining me every Friday here throughout the season for the odds report. And of course, we do record this on Thursday evenings, so some of these things may have moved around and whatnot, but we do the best we can here with this segment, which, Brent, is always a pleasure, always a treat. Thank you so much, man, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Have a great weekend, Adam. Thanks for having me on.